Hello and welcome to Under the Brown Rainbow, where South Asian queer stories come to life. My name is Kashif Harrison. I'm a queer performer and presenter and a content creator. And I'm so proud to be hosting Under the Brown Rainbow in season 2 as well. You know, the way this podcast was created was to tell more stories from the community, and I feel this season has just done exactly that. So many stories from the community and so many stories yet to tell. I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for bringing Under the Brown Rainbow into your favorite podcast listen. Bringing a podcast is hard work, and we would love if you could support us. So make sure that wherever you listen to the podcast from, there is a support option. So support whatever you can. We appreciate your love in any way or form. And this is also that we can bring season 3 with a bigger, brighter, queerer, browner rainbow to you all. For now, let's begin the season finale episode of Under the Brown Rainbow. All right, everyone, welcome to Under the Brown Rainbow, where South Asian queer stories come to life. And this is the finale episode of season 2. Oh my God, how did we even get here? But I'm so glad that I'm joining these two amazing human beings, because this is exactly what I think this podcast, or the intention of this podcast, was to create spaces for brown queer folks or brown queer people. And exactly this is what these two people, these humans, are doing as well. And I'm so glad that I get to be doing this with both of them as a finale for this Under the Brown Rainbow, very brown, very queer episode finale. So, firstly, let's just introduce them. So first I've got Manjusha. Now, Manjusha's pronouns are she, her, and she is the producer of Temples of Desire, which opens in Sydney Opera House this June 2026. Oh my God!
Yes.
And then we've got the star of the show, which is Govind, who is a karma dance classical Indian dancer and maker of queer progressive dance forms. Oh my goodness, Govind, welcome to Under the Brown Rainbow.
Thank you, Kashif. Thanks for having me.
Just so everyone's clear, that Govind and Manjusha are both doing Temples of Desire, which opens in Sydney Opera House in June 2026. What's the date, exact date?
It's the 4th to the 5th of June.
Oof, wow. First of all, let's talk about Temples of Desire and get it out of the way. So what is Temples of Desire, and how did you both come to be together in it?
Yeah, it's called Temple of Desire, and it's a show that draws on like a 3,000-year-old classical Indian dance tradition. It's an art form we've all inherited from our gurus and our ancestors, but we just think it's so rich with lots of amazing things that are relevant to people today. There's a lot of stories that are lost about trans folk, about queer folk, about the power of women. So we've created a dance work to tell those stories and to bring classical Indian traditions right next to and mushed in and snuggled in with queer and trans reality. So it's super fun. We've just come back from Canada, touring to Canada and a few places in Australia. And we'll be at the Opera House, yeah.
I think sacred and sexy is the line that we're going for. Temple of Desire is like classical Indian Bharatanatyam, explores sexuality, gender identity, and the intersections of that. And says it in a beautiful, mesmerizing, transformative way.
That sounds amazing. And I'm pretty sure that many listening to us or watching us would probably go like, okay, definitely booking my tickets in. Let's go. Now, can I ask, so this question is, I'll ask them one by one, and I'll think that I'll just go with you, Manjusha, first. That for the people who are listening to you and watching you for the first time, they're getting this introduction of Manjusha. So what shaped you into the person that you are today? Proud, queer, brown woman, and who is out there telling her story and doing this, in an art form. So yeah, go ahead and tell us your story.
Well, I am a very direct product of my family, and as most South Asians are, I feel like we, for better or for worse, take a lot from our family and our cultural roots. I've been from a young age thrown into the world of arts. I found expressing my identity and queerness through the friends that I made through my art. I found my people and I found a way to belong and an identity within the safety of the art space. And I think that's one of the few spaces in this world where queer people can exist and create freely. And then from there, I just wanted to create more spaces like that, more spaces of inclusion and belonging and making the world a more inclusive space for everyone, really. That's where my story began and my path kind of led me to. Yeah, I've just been really lucky, I guess, as well, because, not everyone can just automatically fall into the arts and be kind of nurtured over the years and have the opportunities that I've had. Again, I'm very grateful to my family for supporting me through that journey as well. It's very rare and lucky, and the stars all aligned to create and form the interactions and the people that I've met along the way, including Govind, trailblazers, who have been working their ass off from the start to kind of create more inclusive and queer spaces. And it's just been a huge journey, I think. Yeah.
And that is just always so nice to hear, that owning, or especially when you're like so true and full of, that, hey, listen, I don't want to hide. In fact, I just want to show everything what I'm made of. When you have that spirit in you, everything just, like you said, falls into, aligns together and the path just forms. And I think you're doing it brilliantly. Can I ask you that, what was it like growing up South Asian while discovering your queerness? It seems like your family is a very loving family, which we love to hear. They're accepting as well. Was it always the case, or was it a little bit of, push and tear? Would you like to share that?
So with my family, I guess I've been lucky because I've come from matriarchal lineage. My mom has been remarried twice, so I guess I'm not from your conventional household. We've had to adapt as a family, and my mom has been a trailblazer in that way. I've seen very strong women, effectively grown up with the influence of very strong brown women, whether it's my gurus, my mother, my aunties, whoever it is. And I think that was what made me as confident as I am to just own it and not really feel the need to hide too much. Obviously, growing up, I've had a very secret double identity life most of my life, as most queer brown people do. There are many hats we wear. I did a commerce degree. There are lots of things that I've done, which obviously is something that I've had to navigate my own path through. But here I am. So, I think it's one of those things where it's still a work in progress. I'm not perfect. I'm still working through so many things and also working with my family around so many things as well. But again, like finding the right language around gender, sexuality, and identity, communicating that with family, intergenerational conversations like that, all of these things are not things that happen overnight. It's very interesting to hear everyone's stories come together, I think. Yeah.
And that was my next question, that, you've collaborated with Govind, who's the director of the Karma dance, and also the director of Temple of Desires. And he's known for creating queer, progressive, classical dances. And how did this collaboration come to be?
I guess we were making queer progressive work for a while, and often in the doghouse, because, the traditional community was like, oh my God, what are they doing with our art form? And the queers were like, oh, we want, club cabaret acts. We don't want like classical Indian dance. So it was like there was no home. And so we kind of just kept making work. And then at the time we had a academy where we were training students. And then Manju used to start volunteering there for a number of years. And it's like a story of how community work is how this stuff gets made. Everything from minding children to getting hair done to actually, stage managing a show. Like it takes 50 million hands to put something on like that. And that's how it started. And then since then, we've kind of grown to do different works. And then Manju was involved in taking, in the show when we went to Toronto and touring and now coming back home. So it's just one of those beautiful stories, I think, of when, just like Manju says, when you find your friends and you find your people, that, so much magic happens when you're in the safe company of each other. So, yeah.
See, that is the best part of it, that when you find your people, you just want to keep on doing more and more for them, to educate them, to bring them on world stage. And I think that's the intention, right? To be seen.
Yep.
And if you feel seen, you want everyone else to be seen as well. And you've somehow become this Mother Teresa figure. I feel, right? That you're like, oh my God, I just want everyone to be seen.
So important.
Yeah, so Govind, can I ask you that? See, you are a dancer, and Bharatanatyam, it's a very hard form. I remember growing up, because I grew up in Dubai. It was a very Indian cultured school that I was going to, and my sisters were, big on Bharatanatyam classes. So I've seen how hard it is as a kid looking at my sisters. But then now years on, you're doing Bharatanatyam, but as a queer person, and you're mixing it, like you said, it's a very queer progressive dance form for you now, or the acts of it. What do you think Bharatanatyam can explain to people about queerness?
That's a really exciting question. I think there's a lot of ancient wisdom that is embodied in that art that has been passed down. And we call it Bharatanatyam today, but it came from all these historic places and it was influenced by so many things. And, one example in it is that, it teaches people to not identify themselves by their birth certificate, by their age. It teaches you as a practice to be older in some situations or younger, to explore different age identities. It teaches people not to be the gender that's on their birth certificate. It says that any dancer enters the room, leaves all of that at the door and enters, just as a configurable, entirely flexible, beautiful unicorn. And then the art and the piece evolves you to be what it needs to be. So, you might leave the studio doing a piece of work where you're a 50-year-old trans person who lives a different life to what you learned. So it really teaches you to see the world differently. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things it can offer us today, And when people watch dance that uses those principles to try and look at the world differently today, it's amazing. Like, we just fall into the arms of audience members crying, at the end of shows, just going, I see myself differently. And that's what, like Manju says, it's what makes us tick, We need those spaces to feel that way.
It's really powerful because it kind of provides a blank slate, right? And then we can create and tell and retell stories that some have been forgotten as well. I feel like when we think about gender identity, queerness, sexuality, it's always been there in our practices. A lot of it has been taken away from our practices, actually. We are almost reviving it at this point, or at this point where we are going back to our roots, the pre-colonial roots. So I think that's also important to acknowledge. I think, what we were taught is a very contemporary form of Bharatanatyam, right? And then now we are decolonizing and going back to a form, or trying to reconnect with a form before that.
And see, that's very interesting, because I remember that, yes, Bharatanatyam or any dance form, the way sexuality is taken out from it, and it's just a dance form, and some might even, make it a bit more holy. So it becomes this really sacred place where any mixing around with it gets you into trouble. But I think now places, and even art forms have become so progressive that this is okay. And this is, like you said, you're just reminding what was already there, which may have been, I don't know, straight washed. Is that even a word?
Yeah, totally. It's a good way to put it. Yeah, like so much erasure of the sensuality of the art form that, as you say, was always there. So much erasure of the power of women that was always there. So much erasure of the voice of the farmer, the person who wasn't in the upper caste, the person who, was a person of color and not the colonizer, erased, and us told that that's the right way to do it now. And we're like, no, that's wrong if you go, but we're actually, when we do it, it's out of love for traditions, because we actually love it more, not because we're resisting it.
And it's kind of like pining and longing instead of desire. We question a lot of the lyrics and a lot of the compositions as well. If you look at the classical compositions and the Carnatic work, the poetry that has been written, some poems haven't been fully translated, for example. Some poems have been inaccessible to us for so long and are now just being rediscovered. And most of those voices are voices that express like gender, sexuality, and fluidity and identity. And these things are kind of at a point in history now where we're like, oh, reclaiming it. It's not even like we're doing anything new. We just kind of have forgotten it in human history. And that's what happens with 300 years of brainwashing, you know?
There has definitely been that brainwashing for sure in dance forms. See, I was born and raised in Dubai, then Pakistan. So my familiarity with Indian music or my culture, which is, part Indian as well, was just Bollywood movies. And I
Yeah.
remember how I used to admire, and it's just nothing to do with what Zinat Aman was wearing or what was going on. But whenever Satyam Shivam Sundarang song used to come, I just used to be in awe. And it never used to be like, oh, what's your culture? What's your identity? What's going on? It was just this pure honest that
Yeah.
this is a human form. This is God's beautiful creatures. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then somehow people just say, oh no, it's straight. I don't think there's any gender in that form. It can be translucent. Do you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that all the gays love Zeenat Aman, and I think that's why she's a queer icon because of that, because of that movie.
She was a rebel of her time as well. Like, doing stuff like that at that time was very progressive. So we don't give credit where credit is due. So yeah.
And I love that it's called Temple of Desire because sometimes I feel desire becomes very sinful. Now, Temple of Desire explores where the sacred meets the sensual, right? What inspired you to create this work, and what can people expect from this?
I think, yeah, you said it really well. Temple refers to spirituality and desire refers to sensuality. And we really wanted to put the two right next to each other because actually the way it began for us in our art forms is that they were all mushed together. The poetry was sensual. The way people worshipped the gods was through sexuality and sensuality. So we wanted to put it right next to each other. And when people leave, what we want them to feel is that actually that the world has promise and hope for togetherness, and that all we have to do is hear everybody's stories and listen. And if we spend time, like an audience member would, listening to the stories, they can feel profoundly elevated. So yeah, we want people to leave with hope because the show ends in a place of euphoria, queer belonging, and just beyond queer, acceptance of minorities and places in an uplifting way. So yeah.
We wanted to create a world where both temple and desire coexist together, and that is this world. And we kind of wanted to, we wanted to have the audience member walk away with that feeling of belonging and just held. I think that's something that we felt in Toronto was very widely received, which we didn't expect because we didn't know what to expect from the audience members in Toronto. But people came up to us afterwards and were like, I wish my dance classes were like this. I wish that I would have continued dance, or I would have kept going if I felt like I was accepted in this way. Like, this expression through the medium of dance made people feel like there is a space for them to exist. That's the kind of intersection that we kind of live in within Temple of Desire, which is really powerful.
Speaking of a lot of queer brown folks, for us, art forms or even dance forms are a therapeutic experience for us because then we get to explore, we get to express without any questions being asked.
I mean, that's in an ideal world, but then, sadly, with the classical practices, even in the process of teaching Temple of Desire and sharing it with our Canadian dancers. So we do this really amazing format where we take dancers with us, and we also work with the local dancers. So even in Sydney, for example, we are just finished our auditions and we're working with Sydney dancers. They're learning the choreography right now and they're preparing for the show at the moment. So that's all happening at the moment. But in that process, the dancers themselves also go through this process of unlearning and healing within their own practice, because there is unfortunately a lot of violence. Violence was a term that one of the dancers used in our practice. Unfortunately, there are spaces. These spaces should be open and beautiful, creative spaces where you can be. But unfortunately, it can be quite intense and quite toxic to some. And unfortunately, a lot of people have this experience where they feel like they don't belong in these spaces for whatever reason, because of their skin color, because of their caste, because of their religion, because of their gender identity, sexuality, and they've been rejected from the arts, especially within South Asian arts spaces, for so many reasons, and there's so much gatekeeping as well, which again, Temple of Desire is like a process of unlearning for everyone who's involved, including the dancers.
From Melbourne Fringe to Sydney Opera House. Like, how are you both feeling? Is it butterflies still settling in? Are you still super excited at Sydney Opera House? It's not a big, it's iconic. And there it is, a brown, queer dance form being celebrated. So this is a big win for you both. So congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
I think it is. Yeah, it's for our community too, like a big win for our community, because a lot of times these kind of stories are, in the suburbs, in the community halls, in the quiet gatherings, which is a beautiful space for them to be had. We need them in our community. But it's also really important for them to enter what, is the main stage and be seen in the general world of art. So we're super excited. One of the things I'm most excited for is that the show always ends and the closing night with a party, which is a takeover of the space. And so, the foyer of the Sydney Opera House will be full of queer brown folk, and there'll be a, DJ Goddess Naavikaran, who's a trans. Everyone's invited, and it's a celebration. It's a collective liberation for all of us. So part of this process from Melbourne Fringe has been about finding what spaces do we really deserve as a community, and how do we bring everyone there, because we live here too, so.
That's the thing, like, where is the South Asian arts in the mainstream spaces? I mean, we are literally 1/3 of the population of this country, but where is it in the art scene? Tell me. Like, I don't understand. There's like 1 billion dance schools in Sydney and in Melbourne. Like, literally throw a stone and you can find a classical Indian dancer in any of these cities. But where is the arts in the mainstream space? We can't be watching Swan Lake every day. Like, there's more stories out there that needs to be seen on the mainstream stage. And Australia has this identity of what is Australia, what is Australian culture, what is Australian art. And I feel like these are things that need to be rethought and are evolving. I'm actually super excited about the Opera House, because not only are we performing there on that weekend, we're super lucky. Bangara is also opening the same weekend as well. So it's like a brown takeover of the Opera House, literally.
And we love hearing that.
In all across the board. So we're going to be partying it up, and super excited. So everyone's welcome to the party after the show as well. So stick around, don't leave.
Don't leave at all. Are you both promising that there will be classical mixes and remixes?
Oh yes, it'll have like Bollywood, Tollywood, Mollywood, Carnatic, Hindustani, mashup of your life, your dreams.
I just want him to play Bhor Bhaye, but the remix version out loud.
So good. It's on the request list straight away. Yeah. Don't ever go home. That's all. Just stay with us forever.
So can I ask that, in our episodes in season 2, we had beautiful conversations, and a lot of those conversations were also kind of pointing towards when someone like us, who has to always choose between culture and community, right? Or culture and identity. So my question is to you both. So growing up, when did you guys feel that that's my culture, which I genuinely love, but there's also my identity, which I want to take with my culture hand in hand? So what was that feeling like? And maybe just if you can talk us through that a bit.
It's a really good question and a tricky one because it's such a journey for all of us. And sometimes you get through it and you look back and you don't know how it all happened. So I'm sort of replaying, journeys in my mind. But, I think as a person, I would have been a teenager when I, realized that these two expressions had to coexist. And I think I found private spaces and quiet places where, I did that with, I hid from the rest of the world. And there was this very, very latent, long journey of actually bringing that out, as we say, into the open. Um, Strangely, I think my artistic journey lagged another 10 years behind that. So it was only in my like 20s and 30s that I felt comfortable putting those two things on stage. And I see it still today in people that have similar identity intersections to me, where it's not in their work on stage, but it is in their private life. And I remember that, and it's hard. And so, I feel like that was way later. Like the person I was on stage was really, really straight down the line, Yet, meanwhile, Saturday night, so, it was, and suddenly these last, I'm going to say 5 years, I felt a real congruence of person and art and whatnot.
Well, for me, it was interesting because I guess it was when I was early teenage years when I really thought about my art form. I think I have to thank my art form. So I'm a classically trained Mohiniyattam dancer. Now, Mohiniyattam is a very interesting dance form. It is a trans art form. I don't know. I'm just gonna put it out there. It is Vishnu becoming Mohini, a seductive woman, to seduce the enemy through the form of dance and then kill them. And this is how my art form was originated, right? And so as soon as I was like thinking about that for more than 5 seconds, I was like, wait a second. So there is both male and female identities here. Like, this is very interesting. And the art form itself is centered in this femininity, this really exaggerated feminine energy of like, and it's practiced by women, taught by women, shared by other women, being very sensual and very, very sensual to nothing. So it's very interesting. It's almost like you're depicting gender and sexuality to thin air. And so, yeah, in my teenage years, I was very lucky in the sense that this was my medium. So a lot of how I saw the world was kind of shaped around dance, and so dance and personhood like was very like intertwined for me, I guess, in a lot of ways. So yes, I had my secret life of exploring my sexuality and gender identity outside of dance, and being a dancer in the social kind of society construct of being a diaspora child in Australia meant that I was a goody goody two shoes of some sort. But at the same time, it's kind of like, well, actually, my art form is quite sexual. So I don't know. Like, I think for me, it was a very different journey. But I started questioning a lot of things very early on, and learning more about my practice and identity helped me unlearn and learn more about myself, I think, as well.
I remember as kids, we used to love watching Chandani by Sridevi,
Yeah.
Sridevi, Rishi Kapoor, Yash
Yeah.
Chopra. Favorite movie ever. Mom used to think that I was in love with Chandni, but if I'm being very honest, I used to imitate her as a kid. I used to dance a
be
lot
her.
as a kid. Yes, especially that dance when she's doing that. I think she's peacocking. That just
Yes.
that classical number that happens,
Yeah.
where she's in the white ensemble and it's just like
Yeah.
that pure energy. Man, I was just in love. And I was like, wait, I want to be her. It's not that I love her. I love her as a queen, but nothing in,
Yeah.
So wait,
Yeah.
is this weird? Am I different? Because I would go and
Yeah.
watch Shah Rukh Khan's movie and feel like I want to be adopted by him, but I was in love with him. So I think I had daddy issues back then. It was just so different.
Because we
But
don't get enough in popular culture to help us read those
Yeah.
feelings, right? We know how to deal with boy meets girl. We know how to deal with dating in the conventional sense. We know how to deal with
Yes.
even baby making, not dating donors, getting sperm donors, having, children, IVF. Like, none of there's no, like, so you're right. Like, how do you process this feeling that you've got for Shah Rukh Khan and this feeling that you've got with any of the information you have in the world to help you, right? So I totally
I
relate.
still remember rewinding and watching like those romantic songs and being like, so what, they just dance? Like, I don't know, is
Is
there
that
anything
it?
more?
Yeah.
The
Like, oh
flowers
my God.
shaking.
Yeah.
It's like,
The
there's
ant.
nothing more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I
But
love, Kashif, you were saying you grew up in Dubai, and like I just love how we've been finding through this project as well, like how shared and common these experiences are, despite the fact
Mm,
that, like, for
yeah,
example, in our group, out of the 16 dancers, there are people that were born in Malaysia, in Toronto, in Papua New Guinea, they lived in Papua New Guinea, the Pacific Islands, Brunei, like the Indian diaspora or South Asian diaspora more
yeah,
clearly. Yet we can sit around and have a chai and talk about all of this because it's so common, and I just love that that's our story, we're so
yeah,
lucky, to
and
have
that's
this
our
vision.
community. And
yeah,
that's our
Yeah,
community, right? It's
yeah.
it's
yeah,
beyond a certain country. We are crossing borders.
Mm,
We're just binding together based on one thing that we have in common, which is queerness.
mm,
Absolute
yeah,
mm.
crazy queerness.
Yeah.
yeah.
Can I ask you that? What do you hope young queer South Asians feel when they see themselves reflected in work like this, Temple of Desires? What do you think they can take away from this?
That anything is possible. That if they want to go on stage and do some insane queer stuff, they can. They just have to apply for funding and get, a certain amount of experience, but they can get there eventually.
I want your young queer person that, because if I think when I was 13, 14, 15, I wish I could see something like this. And it's partly
Yeah,
why we're making it. So I would love them to sit there, experience the work and see a crowd full of people at the Opera House applaud the queer and trans South Asian experience. Not look down
yeah,
on it, but applaud and celebrate it because it's beautiful and
yeah.
their feelings are legitimate. I just want them to feel that rush because I would, I feel it every night when we do the show when the
Mm,
audience says, yes, we heard your
yeah.
story. And I think the amount of self-harm that's happening in our community, the amount of
Yep.
lack of safety in common spaces, that applause needs to be heard
Mm,
by everybody because that is safety.
yeah.
That's so yeah, that's I really hope that they can have that
And
experience.
that's, I think for young queer people, they face so much discrimination on so many levels, and it's
Mm,
like so much rejection as well. I feel like we live in a world that just says no to everything, in a lot of ways. And for young people specifically, there's like, if you get told enough times that this is not possible or no, or enough doors have been shut, you just give up,
mm,
right?
mm,
And I think that's such a shame, especially for artists and creative people, because you need that 5% of hope. And I hope that, when we were in Toronto, we gave away tickets for community, and we had subsidized tickets, and people came and they were like in tears because they were like, they've never seen something like this. They didn't know how to process it. They didn't know how to process the power, and the the amount of what we were giving or putting out there. It's a lot. It's in 40 minutes, but it's a lot. But if you can sit through the 40 minutes, it'll change your world in a lot of ways. Maybe see the world in a different lens that you might not have walked into the audience with.
That
Yeah.
is so beautiful. And what is, if I may ask, what is that one thing that you've heard from someone after watching your show, that just, stayed with you?
One person said that um, for them it was all their histories and futures combined, and it really puzzled me and just enlightened me because I was like, it's forward and backwards at the same time. They can see the vision for queer reality and they can see the burden and the trouble we've come from. So that was really pretty special.
I think, yeah, for me, being seen, especially we do have a scene of nudity within the show, and we had a lot of people come after us and were in tears, being like, I never thought I would see that in a Bharatanatyam performance. Like, I never thought that there was a world in which that could coexist, you know? And that was really powerful for me to feel how seen people felt after that. Yeah.
That is so interesting. And I think that's the power of art. It
Mm.
depicts what's the real life, but also, the stage life. It's just difficult for me to just, say what I'm trying to say. Like someone said to you that, I never thought that both of these things could coexist. That's the same in the current world situation, right? We couldn't, back our forefathers, our mums, our dads could not feel that they could ever coexist with someone who's queer, and now their sons and daughters are queer. Do you know? So it's a very different kind of progression and era, and I feel the world needs it. The world right now needs it. There's a lot of hate, there's a lot of negativity, wars, and I think this is such a beauty. This is such pure soul, and this is pure hope.
So true. Yeah, so true, Kashif. And it's like, what is faster? Waiting on politicians to make social change or waiting on artists? And I would say probably artists first, the speed at which we can propagate, different stories, perspectives is so faster than the legislative machine of government. Like, it's just,
And
it's
also, even if
so
legislation
slow.
changes, you need hearts and minds and people to change hearts
So
and
true.
minds. And
Yeah.
like, we've seen that in so many times within legislative history, even with the referendum or the the yes vote. So like, it's one thing to want to have government change and policy change, but actually we need to change how people are seeing the world and how people feel about
it.
things.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
true.
And that can only be done in art. And I hate how arts is always the first to get cut in terms of funding. I'm so mad with all the funding cuts. But I hope that the larger society realizes that if you fund the arts, then the arts can change and create the world that you want it to be. Then we can have the legislation follow through. I think art should take the lead, but that's just that's just my 2 cents.
Art should take the lead. Drop the phones, drop those Instagram reels and TikToks and everything. Just follow art. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
Can I just say, Manjusha and Govind, it's a beautiful feeling having you both on under the brown rainbow. These conversations, I can go on and on and on. Restriction of time. I just saw the timer, but I just want to ask you last question. That for someone who is young, brown, queer, listening to us, watching to us, and feels a bit seen, feels a bit heard, feels a bit felt, what would you tell them?
I'd say that you are resilient because of what you've gone through. So you actually can face the challenges. You might think, I'm looking at coming out, or how am I going to deal with XYZ? And you might think you don't have the capacity. You actually have a strength of capacity because of what you've gone through. So I would actually say your resilience is in the heart of how you exist because you're queer and because you're brown, and you have it. So yeah, don't doubt yourself.
Yeah, I would say lean into whatever you feel like you want to do or have been putting off or have been scared to do. Just lean into it, because at the end of the day, on the other side of it, is a community that's waiting to hold you and to be a part of your world. And there are so many people out there like you, just waiting for the right opportunity or the opportune moment. And the opportune moment is now. There's no neon lights that just say, if you need a neon light saying go, now is go. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And all I would say is that to our listeners, our viewers, to go and book your tickets to Temple of Desires, which is opening in Sydney Opera House, June 4th to 5th. Oh my God!
Yay.
Thank you so much, both of you. I wish you all the very best. I really hope that I get to see Temple of Desires. If the tickets are left, I will definitely go and book myself. Can I just say what you're doing is beautiful. Keep doing that and keep telling the story, because I feel for so many brown queer folks out there, these stories really, really matter. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kashif. Thanks for having us.
This is Kashif signing off. Under the Brown Rainbow, make sure to like and share the video, subscribe to our channel, and make sure that you follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get our podcast from.